we've got here is
grown man ball. Something he gotta deal with.
Cool Hand Podcast, something you got to deal with. Welcome back to the show. Welcome back to the new season. Matter of fact, we never really had seasons on here. I just kept it going, and I called the break in between 2020 and 2021 a new season. But there's never really a real season with the Cool Hand Podcast. But welcome back. Welcome back to the show. There's a lot we have to talk about. It's a new year. I think I'm going to put this episode out first because there's going to be less to edit with this episode. It's not video recorded, so a lot less work for myself. It's 2021. We're recording this in the middle of January, and I just want to talk about some things with the people who choose to listen today. I have a guest accompanying me today. And that person is a very talented person, a very talented wife of mine. Wife, can you please introduce yourself?
Hi.
Who are you?
Kayla. It's like I never know what to say when you say introduce yourself.
Welcome, Kayla. And that sound was for you. Say your name again.
Kayla.
Kayla. All right. Now, thank you for being on, Kayla. How are you feeling today?
I feel all right.
All right. Now, Kayla was doing something right before we started this podcast, and we're going to talk about that today because she's been busy with her creative endeavors. And we had Kayla on before. We talked about some of her upbringing when it comes to creative things. She does poetry. She does art. What else do you do, Kayla? Poetry, art. What type of art do you do again? I don't know.
Primarily just digital illustrations and also paintings. I haven't drawn in a while, but I've been mainly using watercolor and oil for my paintings.
Okay, and you have an Instagram page for your artworks.
Mm-hmm.
And what's that Instagram name called for the people who want to follow you and keep up with everything Kayla Kreates?
Well, it's just that you can follow me on Instagram at _Kayla Kreates with a K, so KaylaKreates.
All right, I was gonna say we'll put that up on the screen. However, this is not video recorded, so honestly, people who listen to this are probably people who already follow you. You already know.
Exactly.
So, Kayla, now as someone who's close to you, I was going to ask you, how was your 2020? But I think I can probably predict your answer. But for the people who don't know, how was your 2020? How did that year go?
I mean, it was pretty much like everybody else's year. I feel like it was, we started off pretty decent. We went to Georgia, and that was nice. But by the time we got back, things kind of took a turn. And after that, it was just pretty much trying to stay sane, not being able to do as much or, to go places. So you kind of really got to figure out how to make things work. I guess I could say that it was fine. I mean, I was still working, so it wasn't too bad. But I know I had planned to take up photography, and I didn't really get a chance to give that as much focus as I wanted to, because I would have definitely wanted to be outside more, which I guess I could have been outside technically, but I don't know. It just didn't really work out the way that I had planned in terms of photography, but I did get a chance to paint more. I had a commission that took me quite a while. It was a sizable piece, 24 by 36 inches. And that took up pretty much most of my summer going into the fall, working on that piece by piece. But yeah, I mean, it was decent. I mean, I won't say that it was horrible, but it wasn't what I had expected or intended for it to be.
You know, it may not have been what you expected. And let me just group myself in there with you because we are one as we got married. So it may not have been what we expected, but I say this at my job because they love to complain there. And now I'm one for complaining as well, as you well know about my secular work. However, one thing I'm trying to be more positive lately at my job. I'm trying to be a little more positive. So on the real. So I'm like, well, at least we all still have jobs.
Yeah.
At least we're all still alive.
Yeah.
That's the thing. There's a lot of people who are not in good health for various reasons, whether it's from COVID-19 or from another. You know, COVID-19 isn't the only virus out there. There's things called diseases out there. There's things called other viruses that aren't COVID-19.
Right.
So, you know, we're out of everything that's going on, we can say that we're alive and we're breathing and we're able to talk about it on the Cool Hand podcast.
Yeah.
Something you got to deal with. So, Kayla, 2020, the podcast took a hit. Can I tell you about that?
Certainly.
Can I talk to you about the podcast?
Yeah.
Because we're going to put this episode out first. We have an episode with Wild Boca coming. We have an episode with one of my guys from Mexico coming, but all recorded in 2020. Now, in 2020, you worked on this painting commission, which we'll talk about. Now, 2020, I was doing this little podcast. I was going to quit. And you know, I was just getting my rap back together. I had all these concerts that I was going to go to, Kayla. And we got to go to one, which was on February 14th. And we went to see Duran Jones and the Indications. The openers were E La Bamba. And we got to see them. And I'm like, okay, this is, you know, the concert game is starting out just right. We're going, next thing you know,
Boom.
COVID-19. So all those concerts after that, we got to go to one concert, and I do concert reviews. I talk about my experiences at concerts if I get to talk to the artist or something like that. I was going to kick it up a notch this year. I was going to try to, you know, get some drops from the artist like, hey, can you shout out the Cool Hand podcast, woo, 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 all that other stuff. But that didn't get to happen. But serendipitously, we got to do, you know what I'm saying? But we started the Zoom interviews, and I got to give my man 3D credit for that. I interviewed my man 3D that's on YouTube, Cool Hand Podcast, and that episode is called 3D Interview, a.k.a. Bossman from Jamaica. Now, I was doing interviews on Instagram Live, and that wasn't the best way to do it anyway. But I was still doing it. My phone didn't have enough space, I come to find out, because I wanted to save the interviews from the Instagram Live session and put them up on YouTube. I wanted to get involved with YouTube a little more. And at the end of those episodes of those interviews on Instagram Live, I didn't have the option. Oh, my goodness, I need to put this thing down. I didn't have the option to save. And I'm like, what gives? It's because I didn't have enough space on my phone. And my man 3D wanted to, he said, I don't want to do it on a public forum. I don't want to have the interview live on a public forum. I want to, let's do it on Zoom. We do it on Zoom. His account, he records it, sends it to me. I put it up on YouTube. I'm like, wow, I like this. Like, I like the way it's gone. So I got to give my man 3D credit for that, because if we didn't do that, then I don't think we would have all the interviews that we've gotten in 2020. Mm-hmm. So as one thing took a hit, which was my activity out in the field, I'll call it, out in, you know, visiting people for interviews, because I was doing that. I was pulling up and I had people pulling up to my crib, people I trust, of course. Not everybody comes to the crib, and you know that. So as one thing kind of took a hit, another thing came up out of the dusk. and that's where we got all of our interviews. And we started out with Chef Rashida, which is my favorite. That's one of my favorite interviews, not because it meant a lot, because I reached out to, the sister that I really didn't know. She agreed to do it. She was very good, a very good speaker. Chef Rashida is. She was really engaged. She seemed to be excited to do it. And this was my first Zoom interview, and it went well. Mm-hmm. So that was a big deal. And after that, it was a snowball effect, and we got to interview people. Ty Cam, Garnished from the DMV, who's the bartender. So a lot of things opened up. I got a lot of new equipment. Kayla Kreates was there for the ride. She saw me. I'm in the medical field. I started, putting in that work and getting new equipment and things like that. So the podcast took a turn for the better. I really appreciate everybody who was able to be interviewed, and I'm looking forward to doing more interviews, step my editing game up, my video editing game up, and we're looking forward to what 2020 has to bring. Now, Kayla, I don't want to talk too long. Kayla, you have the Kayla Kreates Instagram page, and you were offering services, artistic services. What services were you offering beforehand, and what changes did you make in 2020 with your Instagram page?
Right. So on my Instagram page, I basically just wanted to showcase what I was able to do creatively, and to offer just, quite generally creative services. I didn't really think of a specific name, because the way it worked was I was very heavy on if you have an idea but don't know how to execute it, or, don't have the creative skills or skill set that it would take to, get it accomplished, hit me up. Let me see if I can work with you. Let's create something. That was the whole thing. It was Kayla Kreates, whatever it is. If you want to design a t-shirt, let's see if we could get it going. If you want a logo, I got you. If you want flyers made up, I got you. Was the type of thing, that I was kind of had going for a little while. And it was nice, but to a degree, there's a problem with offering so many things when you're only one person, and trying to keep up with that just wasn't always easy for me. And I found myself getting stressed out, and I'm just I don't have time to be, working myself up over stuff. So I decided to change the direction of my Instagram page. And I started over. I think it wasn't too long ago, actually, towards the end of 2020, maybe in the fall, I think, is when I decided to just start fresh and use my Instagram page more so as a gallery. And I want to, focus more on painting and art, as opposed to business tools and, how I was making logos and making flyers for people and things like that. More so give myself time to create what I want to create. It's always nice being able to bring someone's idea to life. That was always the fun part for me, was to be able to create something and people would be like, wow, that is exactly what I wanted, or that's better than what I thought. Thank you so much. That felt good, because I'm glad that I was able, to help them, bring that to life. But in the same point, it was after a while, it started to feel stale to me, because I wasn't really doing what I wanted to do. I was doing what everybody else wanted me to do. So that's more so where the focus has been shifted to. I want to try to grow my skills and my my technique when it comes to painting. Like I really enjoy painting. It's relaxing. I'm even, taking a little bit of a break from digital illustration, which was something that I had really focused on the past 3 years. I would say I was doing a lot of digital illustrations and things like that, and cartoon portraits. But to be able to actually work with a medium with your hands, and to blend paint together is kind of like, I don't know, it's just a different feel. And I want to be able to get better at that. So that's what I'm focused on for now.
Excellent. I have this thing about just about almost every profession that has to do with pleasing the people. When you're like a public servant, and when it comes to teachers, when it comes to public servants, like I think that covers it. Mm-hmm. Specifically teachers, and even like police officers, even firefighters, even police dispatchers. Now check this out. Let's just take teachers. I'll just take one of those. When you're a new teacher, fresh out of whatever teacher school, whatever college degree you had to get, and whatever, you're a teacher, you may come in having a fire. You're fresh, you're new in the field, you're ready to teach these little kids. You can't wait for these munchkins and all that other stuff. And you compare your first 1 to 5 years to your next 20. Mm-hmm. You may not have that same fire that you had in the beginning. That's the thing. When I look at the teachers who were like mean, and the kids are like, why would they even become a teacher? And I would think, I bet when they first came in, they were a lot less miserable than they are now. Mm-hmm. So they may have started out, hey, I really like this aspect of the job. A little later, they get a little tired of it. Then their attitude changes. Then their mood changes. Then the way they teach or handle the students changes. When you talk about what you were going through with your services that you were offering, you liked it, right? Mm-hmm. But then you forget what you started it for. It's like, I want to do art, but this isn't really cutting it for me. Like, I'm doing this for you, but my satisfaction isn't getting fulfilled. And now it's not like this is your livelihood. This is a hobby at the end of the day. Mm-hmm. Let's keep it fun. That's the thing with this little podcast that I do. Like, I spend way more money than I'm ever going to make. So far, I've made about $1 and some change off this podcast. I'm dead serious. I've made $1 and some change off of the service that I use to like what can I do with the $1 that I've made off of it? Put $1 back onto like one of the credit cards I use to buy equipment. Yeah. But you put in more than you get out.
Yeah.
Right. So you are putting in a lot of work for people's needs. And then when you're dealing with people, they want to get specific, right? Mm-hmm. You may give them a sample of the product, and they say, yeah, I don't like this. Now, did you have to deal with that much?
Yeah, there was a lot of times where people wouldn't exactly know what they were looking for. And that was always fine, you know what I mean? Because I'm like, I get it. So here's an idea. So I was always quick to be like, well, here, let me sketch something up real quick for you to get a feel for what's going on. And it's fine, you know what I mean? If they're like, oh, okay, like I see that, but that's not really what I'm shooting for, I guess. And then it's like, okay, well, what is it? And then they're like, well, I don't know. I thought you would know. And I'm like, well, I could know, but I don't, like you got to give me something.
Yeah.
And then on the other hand, there was people who would be like, oh yeah, like this is what I want. And I'm going for this type of vibe, and, I want something like this. And then I create it, and they're like, oh my goodness, this is great. I love it. And then 2 days later, they're like, you know what? I think I just want to scrap that, and let's just do something completely different. And there have been times where that has happened multiple times over the course of like 2 weeks. Just like back and forth, not simple changes like, okay, instead of orange, I want blue. But I mean like structural changes to things like that, especially when it comes to logos. And I think another thing is people don't realize how much time it takes to go in to certain things. Like, for example, even if I use a logo or I make a logo and it appears to you that I've used a font, sometimes I don't always use a font. Sometimes I'm creating a font. Like letter by letter, I'm creating the lines and curves that you see. So to change it is like, sometimes it's like, man, like, and then they expect to see like a whole new thing in like 3 days. And it's like, it doesn't work that way.
That's the thing. People see the final product. They don't see all the work that gets put in behind the scenes. And now you were charging people for your services, of course. But the thing is, when it comes to changes, were you able to account for, were you able to charge up or, offer something in the beginning, let them know, hey, for certain changes, it takes time and effort. I'm going to have to run the bag up just a little bit because you're doing this. Now, was there any type of understanding like that? I'm not trying to put you on the spot.
No, definitely. At first, there was not. For quite a while, there was not, because, like, I'll just be real. I'm not a professional. I never consider myself to be a professional. I don't have any type of, schooling or degree or certificate. Like, I just do this stuff because, like, I have an interest in it. So I don't always feel comfortable. I didn't always feel comfortable saying, oh, well, you have to pay more for that. Because I just felt like they would look at me like what? And then in the same token, it just didn't feel right for me. Like, I'm like, I don't want to, you know what I mean? Because a lot of times it would be people that I knew. Starting off, it was only people that I knew. And I didn't want to feel like, I was charging them for something that, I'm technically not even, like, I'm not a professional. So for a long time, no, I didn't. And there was no communication. But eventually, as time went on, I realized that it just wasn't fair to me to, to stress myself out over something like that. So then I would start to make it clear in the beginning, like, hey, this is what I charge. This is what that price entails. Typically I do allow 2 revisions within the initial price. There's a deposit. And then any additional changes after the 2 revisions or, anything like that would be this much more each time or whatever the case may be. And once that was communicated, then I felt like people did start to spend a little bit more time thinking about what they wanted. Or a lot of times people would just decide, never mind, and either just not hit me back or just be like, oh, I wasn't expecting for it to be, that way. And I'd be like, that's totally fine. Because at the end of the day, it's like, at least, and I don't get into the situation where like, now we're both sitting here looking crazy.
Yeah. Stuff costs money. Nothing is cheap. Nothing is free. Nothing is cheap. We've had the people that we've had on this show, on this podcast, who offer services, they all talk about accounting for the time spent. There's a lot of effort and time spent, whether it's a chef, whether it's an artist, like we had Larry on the show, those things, or even let's talk about the bartending. We need that gratuity. You know what I'm saying? Like, you have to show that appreciation. There's that gratuity, because I know for myself, I got drinks at the crib, but I don't mix none. I drink it straight. You know why? Because I can't mix to save my life. I can't. Boy, I couldn't mix nothing. So I just, you know what I'm saying? So like, it's a skill. Whether you want to appreciate it or not, you need to at least acknowledge that it's a skill and respect that. And respect that there's time put in. Let's talk about them drinks real quick. I can see a bartender mix something up and say, oh, that's simple. I might come back to the crib, try it myself. Tastes horrible. So... Like, seriously. Yeah. So let's get into it stuff. And that's the thing. You may not have to agree with the work. I mean, agree with the price. That's because you don't understand. Now, some people can just run the bag up, just run the money up because, they feel that they're that nice and this and that. You're a reasonable person.
Yeah.
And I am talking with bias because we're married. But
no, but I've had people tell me, like, you need to charge for that. You need to charge people more for that. And things like that. Like, people have told me, like, girl, you need to. And it's like, I don't know. It's always different when it's you. This is kind of side note, but something you said made me think about. Quick story. One time I was so mad. Somebody came to me and they were like, hey, like, I want a logo. This is my business and what I want. And I feel like I created something I was so proud of. Like, just this beautiful, like, cool looking logo, with like negative space and like all types of it was pretty dope if you ask me. And she's like, oh my gosh, I love it. This is so perfect. This is so great. Like, this is so perfect. And this is early on. This was before like I completely, knew how to communicate everything. And so I'm like, she had already paid the deposit though. And then I'm like, I can take the watermark off for you as soon as you send over the rest. And she's like, okay, I got you. She's like, I get paid, next week or whatever. And then next week comes and I don't want to push her, like I don't want to pressure the girl. And I'm like, okay, well, I'll give her time. I'm not going. And then like a month goes by and I'm just like, so I guess she doesn't want it anymore. But I was like, let me just double check. Like, hey, were you still interested? And she read it and didn't reply. And then the next thing I know, because I followed her too. Next thing I know, she like was like, oh, I'm making logos. Hit me up for the low. And I'm like, interesting. So I go to see like what she's making for her logo. So she made her own logo, which was really just like an image that she pulled off of Google and put some words on top of. And I'm like, oh, okay. And then she's making logos for other people that are also just like images that she pulled off of Google and just like typed their business name over. And I'm just like, so is that like what you think logo creation is? Do you think that's what I was doing? I don't know. Like, that made me feel some type of way.
You know what? Honestly, like, I'm not going to call that culture vulturing because maybe more so of a misunderstanding of, you can call it culture vulturing. You're trying to benefit off something that you don't really love, because if you're or really care for, like, you just see it as an opportunity to get some money out of it, and you think, I think this is easy enough, or I can do this, I can make some money. You use it as a hustle rather than for the love of it. You do logos because you love art, and you started doing this on your own. You didn't see like people were getting a bunch of money, a bunch of chicken off of like logo making, and thought, oh, I'm gonna start making logos because that's where the money's at. No, like, you just started doing it on your own because you thought you can, like, help people out and get some money on the side with it, doing something you love, make some money with it. Now it seemed like, this person, went on Google, Cool Hand Podcast, they Googled a microphone, an illustrated microphone, then go on an app, a free app on their iPhone or Android, whatever they use, and put Cool Hand Podcast on top of it, and then charge $50 to $75 for it. That's a quick run. You're just running up some money, and then this person had you do all this work that you were actually really proud of, right? And then didn't want to pay you. Not cool.
Yeah, that was an interesting time.
Yeah, not cool. Now let me just be real with you. How much were you charging for it?
Honestly, I was only charging $75.
I don't think, personally speaking, I don't think that's too much money.
No.
People spend $75 on liquor. You know, some people spend $75 on. What else is ridiculous that people like to blow their money on that on a new Polo Ralph Lauren shirt from Macy's. That's half of a designer bag, of a lower end designer bag, might I add, right?
Yeah.
70, some of these, nice bags are like,
$250.
250, now 75, that's half of 150. People blow their money on a lot of things that are really stupid. So and my point being is, because I have some investment in this story now. How much are these things going to be worth in a while? Now, if you have a logo, you now have something that people identify you and your brand with a beautiful logo, right? They said that they liked it, they loved it, all this other, stuff. And now what's that logo compared to that shirt that you bought, or that dress that you bought that's gonna rip because it was cheap? Just, you know what I mean? So people really got to get their minds right and their priorities straight when it comes to business. I am not a businessman, and I don't have a business. I'm a worker. I hate to admit it, but I'm not a boss. I'm sorry, Dame Dash. I'm not a boss. I'm not a boss. I would like to be a boss one day, but I'm not a boss. I'm a worker, so I can't speak on nobody's business. But when you think about something as simple as a logo, and when I say simple, it's like, this is your identity. Like, all you have to do is pay for the logo, and now you have something to identify yourself with. There's a lot of things behind that logo. There's a lot of things behind that brand. But you wanted to buy, you know what? 1942 tequila is $129, probably like $136 plus tax. You can't even, what are you going to do with that money? You know what I mean? That's $75. I'm done, because now I'm just starting to spiral. So what we were talking about today was with Kayla Kreates.
Oh my gosh.
Kayla Kreates. Now, there was something else that you started doing toward the end of the year that you did before, and that you were able to profit off of. And can you talk about that?
Yeah. So, we'll start from the beginning. Actually, in 2019, we'll go back. I had gone down a rabbit hole on Pinterest of like bullet journals and bullet journaling, and how, there was like that whole craze. And I was like, whoa, like, this is cool. And I was like, I want to do that. But I knew that I didn't want to like have to draw my little, collections and pages every time I went to use it. So I was like, I'm just going to like draw everything out and then make copies of it, and then just put together like my own little planner. And then when I did it, I was like, that's actually kind of like cool. So I was like, I wonder if other people will want one. And I did ask, and they were like, oh yeah, I want one. I was like, all right, cool. All right, bet. So in 2019, technically I created the first Conquer planner. But it really wasn't that great because it was very last minute. I put it together within like a month, maybe, if that, not even, like probably like 3 weeks. And then on top of that, I was still thinking of things as, I was getting it together. There were things that I didn't account for, like the fact that you would have to have tabs in a planner to separate the months. I didn't think about that. So all these different things were just kind of coming together haphazardly. And I said, you know what, if I'm going to do this again, I'm going to do it right. So 2020 came around, and I started pretty early in the year, actually. I want to say, I think I pretty much started in like the middle of the summer, kind of like creating the digital pages of this planner. And then little by little, as the months would go by, I just kept compiling things and brainstorming how I wanted it to be and how could I make it better and all of that good stuff. And then eventually, by the time like October came around, I had a pretty good idea of what it was going to entail and how I could get started. And I was researching different places that I could purchase different materials and products from in order to create exactly what it was that I had in mind. And, the middle of November, I had a prototype that I was working with, and it was decent. But even then, I had more ideas that I wanted to improve upon it. And so then by the time December came, I was ready to announce it. And so December 2020 was my second launch of the Conquer Planner, which would be the Conquer 2021 Planner. Yeah.
Well, let me ask you this. So you started earlier. You learned from the last time you made them last year. You had them. You learned some things and you made some improvements. Now let's talk about what the planners include before I ask you this next question. Now, with these planners, what was the hype about? What were in these planners that made people say, "Here, I want to buy this"?
I guess the thing is that I'll just say that sets it apart from your typical planner is the fact that it is formatted in a way that allows you to follow the idea of like a bullet journal, which is basically bullet journaling it's a note-taking and planning system that allows like complete versatility and customization, personalization. Like you kind of just create formats based on your life and put it into this, blank dotted journal is what bullet journaling is. Whereas when I created the planner, I used that same idea, but instead of it being blank, there are like pre-made templates within it. So it's a planner because it has, calendar weeks within it and within the months. But in the beginning, there's a section of maybe I think it's a total of 20 pages that are considered like bullet journal collections, but they are already made. They're a template. So all you have to do is just fill in the information in terms of your own personal life. So like there's a hair care routine. There's what would you call your ideal day? And you can kind of like plot that out. And then there's also a page for your fitness goals and tracking your weight and things like that and taking notes on that. There's also like household duties, things that you need to get done and when you need to get done. So there were just a bunch of different little collections that I thought everybody could use, but everybody's life is different. So you would be able to make those choices. And then on top of that, there's also a few pages that are meant to be inspirational. So especially for the women's bullet journal, there is, I think it may be like the third or fourth page in, it's called Me from A to Z. And that is basically, I actually got that idea from Pinterest. But what you're supposed to do is just think of a word that would describe yourself, starting with A, going all the way down to Z. And it's in the front because, when you first open your bullet journal planner hybrid, it's supposed to be, inspirational, like, or if ever you're feeling down, take a look at that page and recognize who you really are, and things like that. There are also little quotes, little inspirational quotes and scriptures throughout to kind of, encourage you. There's also like a page that has a blank chart, but you're supposed to fill in each square each day. And the color that you put in that square is going to correspond with how you felt that day or things like that. So it's just kind of like, that one's called A Year in Pixels. So it's like if you were to look back on that page a year from now and see all the different colors that you put into those boxes, you'll be like, oh, wow, like that's kind of cool. Like this is how many days I felt cheerful, or how many days I felt blessed, how many days I felt whatever word you decide, to correspond with your colors. But it's just, it's for you. Like it's supposed to be exactly what you want. And there are also blank dotted pages in there if you have ideas that you might have pulled from Pinterest that you want to put in there, but you have a space for that as well. So that whole beginning section, I think, is what makes it different from a regular planner, because it really is custom tailored to your life. You just fill in the information that will help you and benefit you.
Wonderful. What sets your planners apart in terms of production?
That would definitely be the fact that they're handmade pretty much from beginning to end. Now, some materials I, of course, had to purchase. I didn't make the paper. I didn't make the plastic coils or anything. But they're not sent out to a factory or, produced by some company that I uploaded my design onto a website. I actually print everything out myself. I laminate the covers myself. I apply the vinyl onto the front of the cover myself. I put each of the 12 months in their place. I sure hope that nobody has a tab that is not correctly placed. If you do, I'm sorry. But even the little pockets, I stick the pockets on to the front and back covers, and then I shake it all together and twist the coil through and then close the end. So the whole thing is handmade by me.
Don't you have a video on your Instagram page of you doing it? Of
Yeah,
you putting it together? So it's important to follow Kayla Kreates. If you follow the Cool Hand Podcast on Instagram, you'll be able to see her at. She'll be tagged, of course. If you're not on Instagram, too bad. Anyway, so so this is what sets you apart. Now, when it comes to the reception that you got from when did you start selling them or advertising them, in December of this month or November of 2020?
It was December 1st, 2020.
Okay, so December 1st, 2020, you put it out there. You say, hey, y'all, I'm going to start selling these again. It's that time of year. Get your planners up, get your planner game up, and they're for sale. Woo, woo, woo. So how was the reception to you advertising this year?
Correction. Actually, the first time that I announced that they would be dropping on December 1st was, I believe, November 29th or something like that. So it was very very close to the actual release date. But the reception was great. It was a lot more favorable than I had expected. Like, actually, I had made I had the listing put together in November and everything. So like the listing went live before I was actually ready to accept orders, thinking, you know what I mean? Like, it's not going to be no big deal. Like, nobody's going to see it for real. Especially because my announcement is saying December 1st is when you'll be able to get it.
Yeah.
So I didn't expect anybody to click on the link before December 1st. But I actually got an order the night that I made the announcement, and I was like, oh, no. You're silly. Yeah, I got it. I got an order that night. And I was like, okay, I have to take the listing down because I can't be getting orders before I'm ready to begin production.
Yeah.
Yeah, it wasn't like that in 2019. 2019, everybody was like, oh, like, that's really cool. Good for you. That's great. And then I got maybe like 10 orders, which I'm grateful for. It was really nice. Like, I got like 10 total orders over the course of 2 months, I think.
All right. Now, this year, how many orders did you have?
I'm pretty sure it was 30. Yeah, it was 30, and it was only in the month of December. I stopped taking orders on January 2nd.
Okay, yeah. Now, as a primary source here, I was able to see all the work that she put in to make these, and it's like she'd come home like, I got 5 more orders. I got 2 more
I was
orders.
stressed.
I don't know how I'm gonna get these out on time. And I'm saying that in this tone because she started to become what's the word I'm looking for? Miserable. So so you know, these orders were coming in. These orders were piling in. Like I'm like, ooh, like I'm like, I started to think for myself. I'm like, I can't wait till you're done making these planners. 'Cause, like she was, it was a lot of work. It's work that you realize that this is handmade. If anyone is listening to this who bought a planner, she put this together page by page, pocket by pocket, coil by coil. Seriously. So, our place ain't that big. She's on the floor.
Taking up the whole living room.
Yeah, she's on the floor putting these things together. She's really putting it together. And I'm like, you come home from work and then you start putting in some more work. I'm like, I'd be like, man, walk away from that. Like, take a break. Of course, it's easy for me to say that. I realize some things are easier said than done. I may realize, like, you need to take a break off this for a grip. But like, you have a deadline to accomplish. Now, something that boosted your sales, let's say you were a part of, I think you know what I'm getting at. You were a part of something that helped you promote.
Yeah. Oh, you want me to tell what it was?
I sure do. You gotta show love to, if we give credit on the Cool Hand podcast. We gotta show some love to your booster.
Yeah, no, it was a really, really nice actually experience to be able to be a part of the first ever Zoomarama vendor showcase. So it was something that was actually done in the past, but just not on Zoom. They would rent out a place and have a bunch of small business owners and things like that meet and have a vendor sale. Where, of course, this year we couldn't do that because of COVID. So it was all done over Zoom. And everybody was able to have their little Zoom breakout room and talk about what it is that they're selling and things like that. And it was very nice. I put together a little presentation basically explaining everything that I just explained on this podcast today. And I was able to promote myself that way. And aside from my listing being on Etsy, which allows other people to access it, there were people in different states that were on the Zoom and other vendors even who, supported me in that way and bought a planner. So it wasn't just Pittsburgh. It was everywhere I was getting orders from. Mm-hmm. So shout out to the Zoomarama. They have another one coming out. It's in January, so it'll probably be after. It'll be too late by the time this goes out.
Yeah, shout out to the Zoomarama, and I saw Kayla give her presentation as well. So, if you want a planner, it's a little too late. She stopped selling them at this point. Good riddance. Because I want I want you to kind of relax now.
Some peace of mind.
So, what can we look forward to in the future with Kayla Kreates? Just your Instagram page, what you'll be doing, what you'll be, showing up on there, if you'll be taking commissions anytime soon. What's up?
Yeah, so I definitely want to give myself a little bit of time to breathe. But in the future, I do intend on accepting commissions again. But they will be few, far, and in between. I won't bog myself down with commissions, but that is a possibility. But I really just want to focus on creating the gallery on my Instagram. I want to be able to showcase the different pieces that I've painted and drawn or created over the years, and just to kind of see like the progression. So that's pretty much it. Just paintings, and hopefully, I don't know yet, but if I do decide to launch another season of the planners, it's still up for debate. But if I do, then maybe that'll be something in the future to look out for 2022.
Mm-hmm. Kayla Kreates, I've mentioned this before, helps out with the podcast. She's made a lot of covers, a lot of those covers that you've seen. Of course, she didn't take the picture. Some of those episodes, like the pictures were sent to me that were already animated. Like, let's take Ryan's the episode, the games we play, an interview with Ryan. He sent me the graphic of like that video game character that he created. But Kayla, like there's like a pixel, the words Cool Hand Podcast and all that pixely stuff. Kayla did that. Ty Cam, he sent me a digitally illustrated picture. Kayla put some words on top of it. Not to disgrace the artist, but just, made it a Cool Hand Podcasty. So, Kayla, there's a header on my YouTube page. You can go on YouTube, type in Cool Hand Podcast. That's cool with a Q. And the header, Kayla made that. She's working on a new logo, kind of more of a marketing logo. If I wanted this on a shirt or a hat, a logo that I'm not going to run off on the plug and start doing logos myself after she makes it. Just a joke. But so Kayla helps out a lot with the podcast. She gives feedback. She gives suggestions. She's always willing to help me out, and I appreciate that about her. She wants to see me succeed. So I thank you for that as well. Great support system.
Aww.
No, I'm serious. Great support system. I got to give you some props and love for that on the podcast because you support what I do. This was the first like real hobby that I ever had. I used to talk to people and say, I'm boring. Like, I don't do anything. And that doesn't mean that this makes me interesting doing this podcast, but it is a talking piece. And also, like, a lot of people I know have hobbies. People make music. People do photography. People draw. People sing. People play an instrument. I'm me. I'm Patrick. I have $3.
Oh my
you know what I mean?
goodness.
Like that's all that I can contribute to something when people start talking about, what they're doing and stuff like that. So Kayla has been there from the very beginning, from when I had a Blue Yeti mic in a Chromebook. I was recording episodes on a Blue Yeti mic. You could Google that. It's a USB mic. And I was using a Chromebook. Now, let me tell you something about this Chromebook. Now, this is story time. We'll end this soon because we're going up on an hour. We're coming up on an hour. That's, of this podcast. But with this Chromebook, we got married and she had a laptop, but it was dated. It was old and it ended up dying anyway. But with some of that wedding money, we're like, let's get a laptop. Now, I'm not technically advanced. Like, I was never a tech person. Like, I thought tech was like some geek stuff. And honestly, like, I was never into tech at all. I had a laptop in the past. But this is the thing. $200 to somebody like me is a lot of money. Now, in the tech world, $200 is like $2 in the real world. So we buy this Chromebook. We're at Best Buy. Where they have all sorts of stuff. We're at Best Buy. There's all sorts of laptops and stuff. We're looking in the $300 range for a laptop. We go home with a Chromebook. Oh, it's touchscreen. That's pretty cool. Woo, woo, woo. At the time, I wasn't doing a podcast. And we get this Chromebook, and I thought it was a glorified Android. You download an app. The app would display on the computer screen as if it was on an Android. The picture was long, like
Portrait, like it was on a phone.
like it was like an app would show up in portrait mode. Like, so I start the podcast and I'm using these free apps to record audio. I have this USB mic, and Kayla Kreates was there. She was there for it. And I recorded my first interview with Tevin on there with that T plus, and like it was just it was interesting. We come from humble beginnings on the Cool Hand podcast. The quality wasn't nearly as good as as it is now, but Kayla Kreates was there.
We was just talking. Actually, this is the first time that I'm on a podcast and I can actually hear what we sound like through headphones.
Yeah, Kayla ain't never have no headphones. We didn't have headphones for the guests.
No.
Like the guests never had headphones. But guess what? We got headphones for the guests now. We're not having any guests. I live with this one.
This one.
Yeah. With this guest, we're together for better or for worse. So, you could be on, but I don't think anybody will be wearing those headphones for a long time.
Yeah.
So shout out to Kayla Kreates, the Conquer planners, sold out. They're sold out. You can't buy any more. That's my Donald Trump. They sold out at record numbers.
You don't want to hear my Donald Trump. He clowned me bad.
You can't buy any. We were playing Heads Up. There's the game called Heads Up. And if you know the game, you know the game. I'm not going to talk about, what the game entails. Google it. And so the clue that she was supposed to give me was Donald Trump. And she had to do an impersonation. Her impersonation was whack. It was trash.
I'm not good at impersonations and accents.
Yeah, her Donald Trump was weak. And I'm not trying to say that my Donald Trump is fire, but when I did mine, she was like, "Oh, okay, no disrespect."
It was way better than mine.
With all due respect. But her that's why I did that. So we're gonna end this because we're just talking about some trivial stuff now.
Yeah.
Thank you for doing this. I wanted to use this podcast as a with my wife on here to talk about what she did and what she has coming up, and I wanted to give some game to the people who chose to listen to this and who made it this far, 56 minutes in, to talk about what we have coming up next on the podcast. I'm working on editing. Just bear with me. The videos will hopefully be a little more entertaining or visually pleasing. So shout out to everybody who listens. Thank you. Any last words, Kayla? This is the Cool Hand Podcast. Cool Hand Podcast, something you got to deal with. Easy.